If I could only think of how to cut you away, I wouldn't be so frightened or scared to be enlightened. It's kind of difficult to keep my mind on a day that I didn't really mind it. It's in my face, I'll find it. The field of colors bleeding and it's so far from home. The thoughts keep coming forward, I wish I wasn't so bored. Does it really matter if I'm dying alone? I often try to fake it, what's in my face I'll take it. I'm trying not to break it, the timing it was so right. The heaviness is so light, no more or less is coming. The substance stand for something, you keep speaking easy, you really do believe me. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. If I could have the heart to take a knife to my skin, I'd carve your name for comfort, a feeling there of some sort. It's been a small eternity tormenting within, so hard to keep it inside. My mouth waits for the surprise, staring out my window at a bird on the line. I
you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Corrosion, corrosion to her thighs, erosion, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Good morning and happy Friday to you. It is Morning Extra. I'm your host, Uncle Warren. Because it says so right here. I can't read. Maybe you can. Maybe it says go fuck myself. I don't know. I don't know anymore these days. It is Friday. And I hope everybody's doing well as can be in this toxic environment. Toxic in more ways than one. So let's go around the horn here. We got... looks like everybody's showing up on YouTube today. Willie Bragg says, I was waiting for my prescriptions this morning. This past week, the insurance company was not sure they were going to authorize it, but they did, to my surprise. I know, right? when you're pleasantly surprised when normal shit that's supposed to happen happens, right? It's the other shit that's pretty fucked up. We got Kate in the house. Hey, Kate, I hope you're doing well. I know everybody was checking in on you the other day. See, that's what we do. We don't see somebody for a while, and then we worry about them, you know, because we do. We worry about you guys. We hope you're okay. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show Intergalactic. I've been apprised to some of the elements in this new episode that's coming up for Chuck, and it's pretty silly. It's pretty damn silly, but it's so good. Chuck puts a lot of work into these videos, so when the time comes, of course, we'll let you know here, and then we'll have another episode to enjoy, hopefully. I guess that's it for right now. We probably got some lurkers somewhere. We're also on Rumble and Facebook, so if you're lurking in those areas, good to see you. Well, I guess not see you, since I don't see you. Good that you're there. How about that? Speaking of good that you're there, you know, we love money around here. You know, we love it. We taste it in our mouths and go, delicious. That's why we love doing coffee, especially this shitty stuff. This Desperation Blend extra dark roast ground coffee we're selling here. Come on, y'all. We need that money. It's the future, the year 3000, and the only remnants of humanity left are a burned out Cybertruck converted into a toilet and Desperation Blend coffee. Wow. 1,000 years from now, really? Its infinite list of preservatives and extremely illegal chemicals are a testament to the longevity of its bold nightmare-fueled taste. Are you running out of dumb shit to buy with your money? Does the future look so bleak that you're willing to poison your body with shitty coffee you bought on YouTube? Well, grab a bag of Desperation Blend Extra Dark Roast Ground Coffee, found online and in Sarah Connor's safe house. And that's the thing, if I can get rid of this. Yay, there we go. That's a coffee bit for today. I love our fake sponsors who fake support us. Kate says, I have a brutally hardcore lawsuit against the city of Vancouver, the Parks Board, a logging company, and a corrupt arborist. That used to be my old job, corrupt arborist. All my time is taken on the lawsuit. All our money is going to the lawyer. I'm very sorry to hear that. Very sorry to hear that, Kate. Good morning, Kieran. Good to see you. Boise Vicks. I heard that's what they renamed Trader Vicks. They renamed it Boise Vicks. In addition to the lawsuit, I am main streeting with my banners and stickers 8 hours a day, getting the word out that we're going back to court and raising cash. Okay. As long as you're healthy, that's all I care about, Kate. You know, we worry about your safety. You know, there's so few of us that actually know what's going on and actually give a shit about what's going on in the world. So thank you for that. I appreciate you. And unfortunately, we have bad news for you, as always, on this show. But that's why you come here, right? Yeah, for the bad news, maybe. Why did Israel bomb Syria? Look at the Druze and the violence in Suwaida. So I believe that this happened on Wednesday. So this is from Wednesday. Right. Israel has launched a series of intense strikes on Damascus, Syria's capital, intensifying a campaign it says is in support of an Arab minority group. Syria on Wednesday strongly condemned Israeli attacks, denouncing the strikes as a dangerous escalation. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs accused Israel of pursuing a deliberate policy to inflame tensions, spread chaos, and undermine security and stability in Syria and other places around the world, too. The strikes killed 3 people and injured 34, according to Syrian officials. So what happened in Syria? Israel carried out a series of airstrikes on central Damascus, hitting a compound that houses the Ministry of Defense and areas near the presidential palace. The Israeli military also struck targets in southern Syria, where fighting between Druze groups, Bedouin tribes, and Syrian security forces has continued for more than 4 days, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. More than 250 people have been killed in Suwaida province during the clashes. Israel, which already occupies the Syrian Golan Heights, says its operations aim to protect the Druze minority, whom it considers potential allies, and to strike pro-government forces accused of attacking them. Syria rejected this and called the attack a flagrant assault. I have to kind of want to believe with Syria here in this regard, since Israel lies so much. The main attacks focused on central Damascus, the defense ministry, military headquarters, and areas surrounding the presidential palace. Additional strikes were carried out further south. Syria's defense ministry headquarters, the compound, was struck several times, with 2 large strikes at about 3 p.m. local time, including its entrance, causing structural damage and smoke rising visibly over the city. Israeli warplanes were circling the skies over the Syrian capital, according to Al Jazeera. There was panic in the city. Near the presidential palace, Umayyad Square, strikes also hit areas immediately around the presidential palace in central Damascus. Another airstrike landed near the presidential palace in Damascus. What's up, John? Good morning to you, sir. In a post on social media, Israel said a military target was struck in the area of the Syrian regime's presidential palace in the Damascus area. In the south, Israeli drones also targeted Syria's city of Suwaida, a mainly Druze city close to the border with Jordan. So Israel's airstrikes followed days of deadly clashes in Suwaida between Syrian government forces and local Druze fighters. The violence began with tit-for-tat kidnappings and attacks between Druze fighters and local Bedouin tribes. When government troops intervened to restore order, they ended up clashing with Druze groups and, in some cases, reportedly targeted civilians. What? The Druze, a small but influential minority in both Syria and Israel, are seen in Israel as loyal allies, with many serving in the Israeli military. A ceasefire declared on Tuesday quickly collapsed and fighting resumed the next day. Sawaida's Druze appear divided. One leader, Yasser Jarbu, declared that a ceasefire had been agreed with the Syrian government. Another, Hikmat al-Hijri, rejected any ceasefire. And many Druze in Syria do not want Israel to intervene on their behalf. Yeah, they're like, look, trust me, we know what your interventions look like. Thanks, but no thanks. Israel has its own considerations and has been attempting to expand its control in southern Syria since the fall of President Bashar al-Assad in December. Israel has shunned any attempts to come to a security agreement with Syria and has instead repeatedly bombed the country this year. That's their idea of coming to a security agreement. Bombing people into smithereens. Many analysts believe that Israel would prefer a weak Syria over a country it believes could potentially threaten it should it grow strong. Of course, they want all those countries around there to be weakened. They want to be king shit a fuck mountain, right? Israel, citing a commitment to protect the Druze and prevent hostile forces from gaining ground near its borders, warned Wednesday it would escalate its operations unless Syrian troops withdrew from Suwaida. The province sits near both the Israeli and Jordanian borders, making it a key strategic zone. This is a significant escalation, according to an Al Jazeera correspondent. This is the Israeli leadership giving a very, very direct message to Syria's new authorities that they will intensify such strikes if the government does not withdraw its troops from southern Syria. Wow. Withdraw your troops from your own fucking country. That's what Israel's trying to get them to do. You can't have your own troops in your own country wherever you want. The fuck? We do it here in America. As part of its campaign, Israeli forces struck the General Staff compound in Damascus, which it said was being used by senior commanders to direct operations against Druze forces in Suwaida. Israeli forces officials said the strikes were also aimed at blocking the buildup of hostile forces near Israel's frontier. Shortly after the Damascus attack, Syria's Ministry of Interior announced a new ceasefire in Suwaida. According to state media, government troops began withdrawing from the area. Syria condemned the Israeli strikes as a violation of international law, a stance echoed by several Arab governments, but not the West. Syria's new government has been trying to assert control, but it has struggled to do so in Suwaida, in part due to repeated Israeli threats against any government military presence in the province. The Israelis are not going to allow the Syrian government to spread its authority all over the territory, said Amar Kaf, executive director of Omran Center for Strategic Studies, who is based in Damascus. With the fall of al-Assad's government and the infancy of a new one, Israel is trying to impose its will on the new leadership, he said. Right? It's kind of like when you're starting a cornerback in football goes out, right? And you got your replacement. What's the quarterback going to do? The first thing he's going to do, he's going to throw to that receiver with that new cornerback on him, right? To test him out. You test out the weaknesses. That's what Israel is doing with Syria. We're still in the early stages, but this requires all Syrians to come together. For a foreign government to come in and destroy public property and destroy safety and security is something that's unexplainable, Koff told Al Jazeera. Yeah, you might want to talk to your friends over there in Gaza. They know a little something about that. The Syrian government has now announced that army forces will begin withdrawing from the city of Suwaida as part of a ceasefire agreement. It did not mention any pullout of other government security forces. Yeah, so... does this work now? No, of course that doesn't work because I need it to work. There we go. Yeah, so I knew as soon as Assad fled Syria, that was it. That Syria was just going to be the new Iraq. You know, it was just going to be just, you know, the U.S. is going to come in, Israel's going to come in, all these people were going to come in and divvy it up, you know, and we'll see what happens there. Another reason they bombed Syria, you may be asking, why are they bombing Syria now? Well, look at the timing. SpaghettiOs, Netanyahu trial delayed again as Israel escalates bombing campaign in Syria. How about that? Right? His corruption trial. It was about to go on, and then, oh no, bombity, bomb, 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 boom, 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 boom. They're like, this guy's like, yeah, right. Shithead long-delayed corruption trial was postponed yet again this week. The Times of Israel has reported, this time due to Israel's bombardment of Syria, the latest in a pattern of escalating regional military campaigns widely viewed as attempts to deflect attention from mounting legal troubles and growing domestic unrest. The Tel Aviv District Court announced the suspension of Netanyahu's scheduled testimony on Wednesday, just hours after Israeli missiles struck Damascus. Wow, how convenient, how the timing, right? Including the Syrian Defense Ministry and the vicinity of the presidential palace. As we told you, at least one person was reportedly killed and 18 injured, which also damaged civilian infrastructure. The bombing came in the wake of Israel's threats to intervene in clashes between Syrian government forces and Druze fighters in Soweto, as we told you. The Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz confirmed the operation, declaring on social media warnings in Damascus have ended. Now painful blows will come. Jesus. Observers were quick to draw attention to the timing. Netanyahu, who faces 3 counts of bribery and fraud as well as other charges, has repeatedly been accused of prolonging Israel's genocide in Gaza and engineering regional escalations as political cover. The Israeli prime minister is also wanted for war crimes by the ICC, which has issued an international warrant for his arrest, and also the ICJ as well. Syria, under the leadership of interim President Ahmed al-Shara, has made repeated efforts to avoid direct confrontation with Israel, yet these conciliatory gestures appear to have offered no protection as Damascus continues to be targeted. Al-Shara, a former leader of al-Nusra Front, al-Qaeda's affiliate in Syria that later rebranded as HTS, rose to prominence with strong backing from Western powers. He was instrumental in securing temporary sanctions relief from the U.S., Trump's administration subsequently delisted HTS, then led by al-Shara, as a terrorist organization in what many observers viewed as a strategic reward for his overtures towards Israel and alignment with Western regional objectives. Yet, despite these gestures of appeasement, Israel's strikes on Syria have continued unabated. Yes, thank you, sir. May I have another is basically the Syrian slogan. Internal political calculations are also said to be at play. Reports suggest Netanyahu's latest military campaign was also aimed at placating far-right coalition partners, particularly the ultra-Orthodox Shah's party. Amid speculation, it might defect, but even that ploy appears to have failed as Shah's has exited from the government, much like Elvis has left the building. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, yeah, of course, even though he is like a criminal and he is doing all this to keep from getting prosecuted and convicted, there's still far worse people behind him. I'm not saying anybody should keep Netanyahu in power for any reason, but I'm just saying there are much worse people ready to replace him. So just keep that in mind. That whole place is garbage, I'm sorry to say. Refuse. Meanwhile, Israel, they haven't forgot about the Gazans. You know, Laney P, what's up? Good to see you. Israeli forces kill 93 Palestinians in Gaza over 24-hour period. Gaza's health ministry said on Thursday that at least 93 Palestinians were killed and 367 were wounded as a result of Israel's genocidal war over the past 24-hour period, as relentless U.S.-backed Israeli strikes continue. The health ministry said that another body was recovered from the rubble. The number of victims are still under the rubble and on the streets, where ambulance and civil defense crews are unable to reach them at this time, the ministry wrote on Telegram. The ministry recorded a total of 26 aid-related deaths and 32 injuries. The latest violence brings the total number of aid seekers killed since the U.S. and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, that's the GHF, began operating at the end of May to 877, and the number of wounded over 5,600. The UN has been reporting a slightly higher aid death toll than the health ministry. Oh, geez, this poor kid. Al Jazeera reported that 8 Palestinians tasked with protecting aid trucks were killed by a drone strike on a convoy of aid trucks that were headed to northern Gaza. Body parts were scattered and civil defense members had to collect them, said Al Jazeera reporter Hani Mahmoud. Israeli strikes on Thursday included the tank shelling of the Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza City. Gaza's sole Catholic Church, who killed at least 3 people and wounded several others. Other Israeli attacks on Gaza City killed at least 20 Palestinians. Health Ministry's total death toll since October 7th has reached 58,000. That's the over 58,000. That's the somewhat official total. The unofficial total, of course, many, many more than that. And there are the numbers there. Studies have found the ministry's numbers are a significant undercount, and estimates that factor in indirect deaths caused by the Israeli siege and destruction of all Gaza's civilian infrastructure bring the death toll into the hundreds, not 100,000, hundreds of thousands. Speaking of that church, yeah, the only Catholic church, Israel bloated up, killing 3, injuring a priest. An Israeli military tank on Thursday struck the Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza City, killing 3 people and wounding at least 9 others. 2 of the dead have been identified as Saad Salameh, the parish's 60-year-old janitor, and Fumaya Ayad, an 84-year-old woman who was receiving psychosocial support from the Catholic charity Caritas in a tent located at the church. Among the wounded was Father Gabriel Romanelli, the church's priest from Argentina, who regularly held phone calls with the late Pope Francis. Suhail Shadi Abu Dawood, a young altar server, was also wounded in the attack, according to the church's Facebook page. The people in the Holy Family compound are people who found in the church a sanctuary, hoping that the horrors of war might at least spare their lives after their homes, possessions, and dignity had already been stripped away, the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem said in a statement on the attack. What's up, Steve? Good to see you. Good morning. The Latin Patriarchate strongly condemns this tragedy and this targeting of innocent civilians and of a sacred place. However, this tragedy is not greater or more terrible than the many others that have befallen Gaza. Many other innocent civilians have also been harmed, displaced, and killed. Death, suffering, and destruction are everywhere, the Patriarchate added. Pope Leo the 14th also released a statement on the attack. I'm deeply saddened to learn of the loss of life and injury caused by the military attack on the Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza, he said. What military, Popey? Hey, Pope, which military? I renew my call for an immediate ceasefire. Only dialogue and reconciliation can ensure enduring peace. The Israeli military claimed that the strike was an accident. There are a lot of accidents. But the Latin Patriarch, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, cast doubt on the IDF statement. What we know for sure is that a tank, the IDF says by mistake, but we are not sure about this. They hit the church directly, the Church of the Holy Family, the Latin Church, he said. We don't have complete information about what's happened in Gaza today because communication in Gaza is not that simple. Sources close to the Patriarchate told The Pillar that internally church authorities were considering the possibility that the tank attack was a direct response to a recent meeting of Christian leaders in the West Bank town of Taiba on Monday. Taiba is a Christian village that's been under Jewish settler attack, and Pizzaballa and other church leaders released a statement strongly condemning the violence and calling out Israeli authorities for facilitating and enabling the violent settlers. Later on Thursday, the office of Benjamin Netanyahu, the criminal guy who's blowing up Syria to stay out of jail, put out a statement saying that Israel deeply regrets that a stray ammunition hit Gaza's Holy Family Church. Of stray ammunition. Fucking liars. According to a report from Axios, a statement was released after Trump spoke with Netanyahu. The report said Trump was upset about the strike, and Netanyahu told him it was an accident. Trump then told the Israeli leader to put out a statement saying that. Like, that's going to fucking help. Everybody knows he's a fucking liar. Who's going to believe him? The Holy Family Church is Gaza's sole Catholic church and has previously come under attack by Israeli forces. In December last year, 2 Christian women at the church were killed and 7 people were wounded by Israeli snipers, an incident Pope Francis condemned as terrorism, but probably not Leo, old Popey. The IDF has also attacked the nearby St. Porphyrius. The nearby St. Porphyrius Greek Orthodox Church in October 2023. An Israeli strike killed 18 Palestinian civilians who were sheltering at St. Porphyrius, including relatives of former House Representative Justin Amash. Ooh, how about that? A funeral was held on Thursday at the St. Porphyrius Church for Saad Salame and Fumaya Ayadan, who were both Orthodox Christians. May the souls of the victims rest in eternal peace. May the Lord grant you all his peace, the Latin Patriarch said in a statement. Despite his injuries, Father Romanelli held Mass at the Holy Family Church later in the day for the repose of the souls of those killed in the attack. I mean, that's nothing new. It's nothing new. Israel blows up churches. They blow up schools. They blow up hospitals. They blow up civilians. They blow up women. They blow up children. Not everybody's fucking Hamas, all right? And now Gaza is practically gone when it comes to its buildings. Right? It's infrastructure, right? Well, you say, well, it's already gone. It's not gone all the way, but it's almost fucking gone. New satellite data shows Gaza devastation scale greater than estimated. At least 70% of buildings leveled. The residents of Gaza, according to a Hebrew University mapping, 89% of the buildings in Rafah, 84% of the buildings in the northern Gaza Strip, and 78% of the buildings in Gaza City have been completely or partially destroyed. The data shows that since April, an average of 2,000 buildings have been destroyed in Rafah each month. The residents of Gaza have nowhere to return to. The world they knew and their daily lives are simply gone, says Adi Ben-Nun, director of the Hebrew University Geographic Information Systems Center. The devastation is on every level, from homes that have been demolished to public institutions, workplaces, schools, and agricultural lands. Everything has been destroyed. In recent months, Ben-Nun has analyzed satellite images of Gaza using an algorithm to assess the scale of destruction. He estimates that around 160,000 buildings, about 70% of all structures in the Strip, have sustained severe damage. At least 25% are entirely destroyed, rendering them uninhabitable. He adds that the actual level of destruction may be even higher, as satellite imagery is limited in detecting damage to a building's walls unless the roof has collapsed. According to Ben-Nun, the southern city of Rafah, home to about 275,000 Gazans before the war, has suffered the most severe damage, as approximately 89% of its buildings are either completely or partially destroyed. And this is, the red here is 100% destroyed, right? This dark red, this is 100% destroyed. He estimates that since April, an average of 2,000 buildings have been demolished in the area each month. In recent weeks, the Israeli government unveiled plans to construct a humanitarian city, aka a concentration camp, on the ruins of Rafah, where most of Gaza's population will be concentrated. See, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Ben-Nun adds that in Khan Yunis Governorate, about 63% of buildings have been destroyed, while in northern Gaza, which includes the towns of Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and Jabalia refugee camp, 84% of structures have been ruined. In Gaza City, also in the northern strip, 78% of buildings have been destroyed. The only areas where destruction is estimated at less than 50%, he notes, is Deir al-Balah in central Gaza, where roughly 43% of buildings have been damaged or demolished. You can see there the more so towards here, more towards Rafah. The figures presented by Ben Nunn exceed those previously published on the subject, according to data from the United Nations Satellite Center. As of last April, more than 50% of buildings in the Strip had been either completely destroyed or significantly damaged, with visible damage to an additional 15%. UN estimates also indicate that beyond residential buildings, the IDF has destroyed at least over 2,300 educational institutions and facilities, ranging from kindergartens to universities. You know those Hamas kindergartens. According to these figures, every university in Gaza has been either completely or partially destroyed, and 501 of the Strip's 554 schools are unusable without major repairs. Additionally, 81% of the roads and streets across Gaza have been damaged or destroyed. You may remember those videos of bulldozers just carving a ditch in the streets. The UN also estimates that the weight of construction debris in Gaza totals around 50 million tons, roughly 137 kilograms of debris per square meter across the Strip. In August, the UN's Research Institute estimated that the volume of construction waste in Gaza is equivalent to 14 times the waste generated by all armed conflicts worldwide since 2008. A few months ago, the organization projected that clearing this debris would take 21 years and cost $1.2 billion. At the start of the war, most building destruction was caused by explosives, though bombs dropped by the Air Force or structures mined and detonated by engineering units. In recent months, however, the destruction has been carried out mainly through mechanical means, often by private contractors hired by the defense military that operate under the protection of combat units. IDF officers told Haaretz that contractors can earn up to 5,000 shekels, about $1,500, for each building they demolish. Jesus Christ. And that they pressure commanders in the field to expand the scope of destruction, demanding forces to protect their engineering equipment and drivers. One of the so-called heroes of the demolition effort in Gaza is Rabbi Avraham Zarbiv, who served as a D9 bulldozer operator during his reserve duty. Zarbiv has boasted about his role in a series of interviews, the latest of which appeared last weekend on the right-wing affiliated website Bashiva. Rafah is being cleared today. There's no Rafah, he said. Northern Gaza is almost entirely leveled. Khan Yunis is next. It'll be wiped out as well. Why isn't this happening within 12 days like the war with Iran? Probably because of the spiritual aspect. Here in Gaza, the work is different. In my humble opinion, God wants our job to be simply clearing the land. Which God is that? All this great wickedness, the likes of which we haven't seen in recent generations, must be wiped out. Alongside the methods of destruction, the objectives have gradually shifted as the fighting progressed. In the first year of the war, the destruction was mainly aimed at exposing areas near the border fence with Israel, those close to IDF fortifications and positions, as well as along supply routes. However, since the start of Operation Gideon's Chariots in early May, it has become clear that the IDF is also carrying out destruction for the sake of destruction. For example, the Israeli daily Maariv in May reported that Netanyahu told the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Security Committee, "We are destroying more and more homes. They have nowhere to return. The only expected outcome will be to the desire of Gazans to emigrate out of the Strip." So basically, they're destroying all their homes, destroying everything they own and love, simply so that they'll leave. What if they don't leave? Statements like these align with government plans to forcibly expel Gazans, including the Trump administration's so-called voluntary transfer plan. Netanyahu has frequently referenced this plan and even told soldiers that the government is working to find countries willing to absorb Gaza refugees. He expressed his belief that more than 50% will leave, and in my opinion, many more. You should leave. Why don't you leave? Motherfucker. God. Well, you're like, well, how can we allow this to happen? How can the world just sit back and watch all this happen? I mean, you have the people in a lot of countries who are standing up and fighting and protesting against this. And particularly here in the United States and in the UK, there's been a lot of crackdown on that, on the protests there. So these countries have come together in a historic gathering, as the title says. 12 countries announced Israel sanctions and renewed legal action to end Gaza genocide. So here are these folks here. That lady has a nice hat. I like the hat. Speaking about Palestine is speaking about resistance in the heart of horror. That is how Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the occupied Palestinian territories, summed it up at an emergency conference in Bogota, Colombia. The same Albanese who is currently facing sanctions imposed by the U.S. government for, according to them, making anti-Semitic remarks after repeatedly denouncing the brutalities committed by Israel against the Palestinian people. Despite these accusations, Albanese remains firm in her denunciations. She reiterated on several occasions that we must not allow these actions to distract us from what truly matters. The genocide that for the past 20 months has escalated against the people of Gaza and the massive human rights violations taking place across Palestine, which have left more than 60,000 people dead unofficially. Of course, thousands more, most of them women and children. The global minority, also known as the Global South, has been the driving force behind actions against Israel's genocide, with South Africa and Colombia playing key roles in this process, she told Mondoweiss during a press conference on the first day of the emergency conference in Gaza, convened by the governments of Colombia and South Africa. These actions have led to the creation of spaces for sanctions and resistance. What we've been insisting on all along is that more and more countries must join these efforts. The Hague Group coordinated this emergency conference, which brought together representatives from over 30 states, including China, Brazil, Spain, Mexico, Turkey, and Qatar. Initially formed by Colombia and South Africa, the group seeks to establish specific sanctions against Israel that, according to Colombia's Vice Minister for Multilateral Affairs, Mauricio Jaramillo Yassir, aim to move beyond discourse and into action. Heads of state and their representatives emphasize that these sanctions are not retaliatory but are in full compliance with international humanitarian law. They are part of the international community's commitment to ending the genocide. One of the central calls made was for more nations to join this effort and uphold their duty to defend human rights. All 30 participating states unanimously agreed that the era of impunity must end and that international law must be enforced. To begin this effort, 12 states from across the world, Bolivia, Colombia, Cuba, Indonesia, Iraq, Libya, Malaysia, Namibia, Nicaragua, Oman, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and South Africa committed to implementing 6 key points. Number 1, prevent the provision or transfer of arms, munitions, military fuel, related military equipment, and dual-use items to Israel as appropriate to ensure that our industry does not contribute to the tools to enable or facilitate genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and other violations of international law. Number 2, prevent the transit, docking, and servicing of vessels at any port, if applicable, within our territorial jurisdiction, while being fully compliant with applicable international law, including UNCLOS, in all cases where there is a clear risk of the vessel being used to carry arms, munitions, military fuel, related military equipment, and dual-use items to Israel, to ensure that our territorial waters and ports do not serve as conduits for activities that enable or facilitate genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and other violations of international law. Number 3, prevent the carriage of arms, munition, military fuel, related military equipment, and dual-use items to Israel on vessels bearing our flag while being fully compliant with applicable international law, including UNCLOS, UN something, ensuring full accountability, including deflagging for non-compliance with this prohibition, not to render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by Israel's illegal presence in the occupied Palestinian territory. Number 4, commence an urgent view of all public contracts in order to prevent public institutions and public funds, where applicable, from supporting Israel's illegal occupation of the Palestinian territory, which may entrench its unlawful presence in the territory, to ensure that our nationals and companies and entities under our jurisdiction, as well as our authorities, do not act in any way that would entail recognition or provide aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by Israel's illegal presence in the occupied Palestinian territory. Number 5, comply with our obligations to ensure accountability for the most serious crimes under international law through robust, impartial, and independent investigations and prosecutions at national or international levels, in compliance with our obligation to ensure justice for all victims and the prevention of future crimes. Desert Mantis, what's up? Good morning, good afternoon, whatever the case may be. And number 6, support universal jurisdiction mandates as and where applicable in our legal constitutional frameworks and judiciaries to ensure justice for all victims and the prevention of future crimes in the OPT. That's the occupied Palestinian territory. Both Yaramil and Zane Dangor, Director General of South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation, emphasized that these actions must not be seen as reprisals, but rather as part of an international effort to break the global silence that has enabled atrocities in Palestine. This decision is aligned with Colombian President Gustavo Petro's renewed order to halt all coal exports from Colombia to Israel. My government was betrayed, and that betrayal, among other things, cast doubt on my order to stop exporting coal to Israel. We are the world's 5th largest coal exporter, which means the country of life is helping to kill humanity. Colombian coal is still being shipped to Israel. We prohibited it, and yet we are being tricked into violating that decision. We cannot allow Colombian coal to be turned into bombs that help Israel kill children. In his closing speech, Petro reaffirmed that Colombia would break all arms trades and relations with Israel and would continue to support the Palestinian people's right to resist. There's more to this story on from Mondoweiss. After the show, I'll have the link for it, so you can read the whole thing to get more into the guts of it. But basically, it's just more and more of these countries are starting to stand up and say, hey, look, this is genocide. This is... we have to speak out on this, because if we don't, who will? What's up, CJ? Good morning. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And I hope it happens sooner than later. This is taking way too long for the world to do that. So, but things are working. Things are happening, and especially on the part of the Houthis, who've been trying to stop items from reaching Israel, right? And this is why it's working. Israel's Eilat port to shut down operations on July 20th amid debt crisis. Israel's Ports and Shipping Authority said Wednesday that Eilat Port will suspend all operations as of Sunday due to an escalating debt crisis that has paralyzed the strategic facility. Aww, sad face. In an official memo, Israel's National Emergency Authority said the shutdown was triggered after the Eilat municipality froze the port's bank accounts over unpaid local taxes, making it impossible to maintain operations. Local media described the move as a dramatic step that could undermine Israel's maritime logistics in the Red Sea. The emergency authority warned that the closure could halt logistical support for the Israeli Navy in the region, raising concerns about potential security gaps at a time of heightened regional tensions. In June, the Israeli government approved an emergency grant worth 15 million shekels, that's 4 million American dollars, to help cover the port's debts, but this was reportedly insufficient to restore normal operations. Local reports estimate that revenue for 2024 has dropped by nearly 80% amid a virtual standstill in vehicle imports and other cargo shipments since the outbreak of the Gaza war in October 2023. On Tuesday, the Israeli army said it intercepted a drone launch from Yemen by the Houthi group targeting the port city of Eilat. The Houthis claim responsibility for a dual drone attack that they said struck the Eilat port and a military site in the Negev region, describing the attack as a successful simultaneous operation. The incident highlights growing security risks in the Red Sea and southern Israel, adding pressure on an already struggling port that has faced severe revenue losses due to maritime threats and repeated disruptions in the shipping lanes. The persistent threat resulting from the Israeli war on Gaza has pushed Eilat's operations to the brink of bankruptcy and now to complete closure. The port of Eilat, Israel's southernmost port on the Red Sea, has long served as a critical gateway for trade routes bypassing Egypt's Suez Canal. However, since November 2023, Yemen's Houthis have intensified missile and drone strikes on Israel and have targeted commercial shipping in the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and the Arabian Sea in support of Palestinians in Gaza, where nearly thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people have been killed in the onslaught. Oh, wow, that button worked. I've got new goodies on I have a little touchpad over here for the show, and I thought I'd got some new stuff to work, and then I tried to do it a while ago. I was like, nope, no soup for you. Why you gotta be like that? So back in 1979, Iran and Iraq were in a war, right? Or maybe it was earlier than that. Maybe no, they were. Iran was no. Yeah, there was the Iran-Iraq war, right? Hey, they both, Shia and Sunnis battling each other. And now you have, times have changed now. And here it is in 2025. And Iraq knows of the fuckery that's going on with Israel and are now kind of in league with Iran. It's kind of interesting. As Iranian Quds Force chief warns Iraqi leaders of imminent Israeli attacks during Baghdad visit. There he is right there. The commander of Iran's Quds forces, Brigadier General Ismail Qaani, carried out a short visit to Baghdad on Tuesday, during which he met senior Iraqi officials, political leaders, and commanders of armed forces or armed factions closely aligned with Tehran, according to sources who spoke to the New Arabic language edition. Something wrong with the New Arab. I tried getting on there the last few days, and it said nope. Wonder if it's shut down in the U.S. Qaani's visit, which lasted several hours, came amid growing concerns in Tehran that Israel may soon expand its regional military campaign to include targets in Iraq. According to sources cited by Al Arabi Al Jadid, Qaani warned Iraqi officials of imminent Israeli attacks that could target individuals, facilities, camps, and offices affiliated with Iran-backed groups. Qaani also urged the Iraqi leadership to address internal vulnerabilities and raised alarms over possible Israeli infiltration of key state institutions, much like what happened during the 12-day war with Israel that they had Mossad had gotten in there and released drones. Qaani was accompanied by Nasser Akhtar, Deputy Secretary General of the Islamic Radios and Televisions Union, a Tehran-backed media alliance. The visit followed a late-night meeting held the day before between several Iraqi faction leaders to discuss recent drone strikes in Iraqi Kurdistan, which most factions denied any involvement in. Sources close to the faction said Qaani had met several senior officials, including Iraqi President Abdul Latif Rashid. During those talks, he conveyed Iran's fears that the conflict in Syria could spill over into Iraq in the coming 2 months, with Israel potentially targeting more than 300 sites across the country, including military camps, offices, and individual figures. Qaani also shared Tehran's concerns about a broader security shift in Iraq that could destabilize the region as a whole. According to the same sources, discussions also touched on recent attacks on energy infrastructure in Iraqi Kurdistan. Most factions denied responsibility, while Qaani delivered several messages from Tehran urging Baghdad to bolster its security and intelligence preparedness amid suspicions of deepening Israeli infiltration of Iraqi institutions. The Israeli penetration is part of a new strategy by Tel Aviv, one source said, quoting Kahani. It aims to sow chaos inside Iraq before launching attacks, while ensuring that the strikes on Israeli targets originate from Iraqi soil first and then from elsewhere. Iranian and Iraqi intelligence reportedly believe Israel was attempting to widen divisions between Baghdad and Erbil to distract from its deepening incursions into Iraq's political, military, and technical institutions. Okay. I think I had a sneeze and then there was another sneeze right. You ever get that? You got the one sneeze and then the next one's like, yeah, you got another one. Here goes another one. But I managed to beat it back. Excellent. So things are getting bad for Israel, right? It doesn't seem like it because of all the propaganda coming out of there, but things are getting bad. And of course, we told you about how Iran had to worry about Israeli spies, right? Infiltrating and destroying infrastructure, that sort of thing. Well, turns out Israel indicts a soldier, they're one of their own, on charges that he spied for Iran. Or she, I don't know if it's a dude or not. Israeli authorities have charged a soldier with spying for Iran, TSK, in exchange for money. The police and security agency Shin Bet said in a statement on Thursday. The statement said the soldier, who was not named, had sent the Iranians videos of Israeli missile interceptions and sites hit by Iranian rocket fire in last month's 12-day war between the arch enemies. The security service stated that he had not sent material collected during his duties with the Israeli army, and added that none of the information provided to Iran had been classified. However, the statement said this is considered a particularly grave incident involving direct contact between an Israeli army soldier and hostile foreign elements. Military court ordered that he should remain in custody until next week. News of the indictment came just one day after Israel launched an unusual nationwide media campaign warning citizens against spying for Iran. You better not do it. Don't you do it. I come to your house. I'll spank you. The ad said people who took Iranian cash in return for information faced up to 15 years in the Huskow. For its part, Iran has executed several people over the past month after they were convicted of collaborating with Israel and facilitating covert operations in the country. Oh, spies everywhere. That's right. So, Israel has spies in Iran. Iran has spies in Israel. Iran has spies here. So does Israel. Iran. Everybody's got spies everywhere. Meanwhile, the U.S. and the rest of the West are chomping at the bit to get Iran to do this nuclear deal, even though they fucked up and bombed their country. And Iran said, no dice, precious. We're not doing that. But the U.S. and allies will bring UN sanctions on Iran if no nuclear deal by the end of next month. Washington and its European allies agreed that the end of August will be the deadline for Iran to sign a new nuclear deal, according to Axios. Secretary of State Aquaman and the foreign ministers of France, Germany, and the UK set the deadline during a call on Monday. The plan calls for using the snapback mechanism to reimpose international sanctions that were lifted by the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Under that agreement, Iran agreed to scale back its civilian nuclear energy program, as well as consent to intrusive inspections to ensure Tehran was not working on a secret nuclear weapons program. In exchange, the UN sanctions on Iran were lifted. What's up, Vera? I just saw you. What's up, Peace Dub? Good to see you. Over at Nahilo's, Abidou's, thing, and Lucy's show too. Okay. This game is choose. No, we're going to sue. Okay, so in the agreement, Iran scaled back its civilian nuclear energy program as well as consent to intrusive inspections. And to ensure they were not working on a secret nuclear weapons program. In exchange, UN sanctions on it. Iran were left. The Iran deal included a snapback provision that would reimpose all sanction on Tehran if a majority of the parties to the agreement voted that the Islamic Republic was in violation. The initial signatories to the deal were the U.S., Iran, UK, France, Germany, Russia, and China. While Tehran was abiding by the agreement in 2018, Trumpy withdrew from the deal and imposed unilateral sanctions on Iran. Aquaman and the other diplomats set the end of August as a deadline as the snapback mechanism is scheduled to expire in October. It's unclear what Iran will have to do to avoid the sanctions. Washington is demanding that Tehran completely dismantle its nuclear enrichment program. However, sources speaking with Axios said Iran could avoid the international sanctions by allowing inspections of its nuclear program and exporting its 60% enriched uranium. Iran ended cooperation with the international nuclear watchdog after the U.S. and Israel bombed the Islamic Republic for 12 days last month. Iranian officials are hesitant to re-engage in talks with Washington. Can you blame them? Starting in April, the Islamic Republic engaged in several rounds of talks with Trumpy aimed at establishing a new nuclear agreement. Those negotiations ended with Israel started bombing Iran on June 13th, right? And guess what? U.S. assessment, Iran could resume nuclear enrichment within months. How you like me now? That's what they're saying. An assessment of the damage to Iranian nuclear facilities following U.S. strikes last month concluded that only one site sustained major damage, and the Islamic Republic could resume enrichment operations within a few months. Washington and Tel Aviv are considering additional strikes to destroy the facility. Probably not a good idea. NBC News reported speaking with 5 sources who are familiar with the assessment. It found that the 3 sites hit during Operation Midnight Hammer, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Only operations at Fordo were set back by years. Trump asserted several times that the June 22nd attack on those 3 Iranian nuclear facilities obliterated Tehran's nuclear program. Sounds like he obliterated the truth when he said that. The outlet explains that Washington and Tel Aviv are considering additional strikes on the Islamic Republic to more completely destroy its nuclear program. American and Israeli politicians have long claimed that Iran is attempting to weaponize its civilian nuclear program, of course, with zero evidence of that. The U.S. intelligence community has assessed that the Iranian government has not ordered the creation of a nuclear weapons program. They've already said that, but it doesn't matter. Officials say the U.S. and Israel could hold off on attacking if Iran returns to the table and agrees to a new nuclear deal soon. However, Tehran says it needs assurances from Washington that the U.S. and Israel will not attack Iran again if its negotiations return to talks. That you're not going to get any assurances for them on those line motherfuckers. Before Israel launched its surprise attack on Iran last month, U.S. and Iranian diplomats were scheduled to meet for nuclear talks. Iran's foreign minister referred to the Israeli attack supported by the U.S. as a betrayal. So they had perhaps this plan in their mind and they just needed negotiations perhaps to cover it up. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said, "We don't know how we can trust them anymore. What they did was, in fact, a betrayal of diplomacy." Trump is also demanding that the Islamic Republic give up its nuclear enrichment program. Tehran asserts that enrichment is crucial to its sovereignty and will not dismantle its program. A U.S. official said that striking Iran's nuclear facilities would be easy going forward, as much of the country's air defenses were destroyed by Israel. NBC News reported that officials explained the Pentagon presented Trump with an option that would have involved more attacks on Iran that lasted weeks. The president chose a limited option with just one round of strikes, knowing that they weren't going to do jack squat. And coming up, we have a very lengthy propaganda watch for you today. We have 2 videos, one by James Lee, but the other is by our buddy Franco from Frank Analysis. And he does kind of a deep social, a psychological dive as well into why Iran can't stand the United States. And there are many reasons why Iran hates the United States. But we'll have that coming up later in the program, as they say. Back here at home, that old Alligator Alcatraz down there in Florida causing a lot of problems. Inmates ACLU sue Trump administration for denying due process at Alligator Alcatraz. Detainees at Alligator Alcatraz are suing the Trump administration for subjecting them to inhumane conditions at the prison without due process. Wow, shocking. I know, right? You're shocked. I can feel it through the interwebs. The class action suit, brought Wednesday with the help of the ACLU and other immigrant rights groups, challenges the government's refusal to let detainees speak with lawyers and file legal documents needed to petition for their release. Inmates in the Everglades detention facility have detailed horrific conditions, including crushing heat. Yeah, if you've ever been to Florida in the summer, oof. Incessant mosquito present, tainted food, cramped conditions, and a lack of access to water and basic sanitation. After visiting the detention center over the weekend, some Democratic lawmakers described it as an internment camp where as many as 32 inmates apiece were crammed into small cages beneath a single tent. Bella, 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 what's up, Bella? Regime change begins at home. Yes, you are absolutely right. We got to change ourselves before we can change the world. The majority of the roughly 1,000 people detained there, according to the Miami Herald and Tampa Bay Times, have not been convicted of criminal offenses, while over a third have not even been charged, right? It's Guantanamo, but it's only in Florida. This facility opens another dark chapter in our nation's history. Remember kids in cages? Its very existence is predicated on our country's basest impulses and shows the danger of unchecked governmental authority when combined with unbridled hate. It represents an attack on common decency, and in this case, its treatment of detained people is also unlawful, said Eunice Cho, senior counsel with the ACLU's National Prison Project and the lead attorney in the case. According to the complaint, multiple attorneys have arrived at the detention center to meet their clients, only to be turned away by armed police and members of the Florida National Guard. The attorneys were later told no in-prison meetings would be allowed. They have additionally been given no information about how to communicate with their clients over the phone or virtually. The U.S. Constitution does not allow the government to simply lock people away without any ability to communicate with counsel or to petition the court for release from custody. The government may not trample on these most fundamental protections for people held in its custody, Cho said. The plaintiffs argue this violates the First and Fifth Amendment rights of those being detained, as well as the First Amendment rights of the attorneys. What's happening here is not just a policy failure, it's a moral one, said Bacardi Jackson, executive director of the ACLU of Florida. Bacardi, that's an interesting first name. The state has hastily erected a costly and deadly shadow prison in the middle of the Everglades during hurricane season to warehouse human beings, stripping them of due process and dignity, cutting them off from their families and legal counsel, intentionally putting their lives in danger, and leaving them to suffer in silence. This is how rights are erased. The Trump administration is seeking to replicate Alligator Alcatraz all around the country. As the New Republic reports, the budget mega bill signed by the president earlier this month contains $3.5 billion for eligible states to use for the temporary detention of aliens. Come build your own internment camp right here for as little as... In a Fox News interview earlier this month, Stephen Miller, human tick, the architect of Trump's mass deportation crusade, called on Republican governors to use this fund to build their own immigrant detention camps. We want every governor of a red state, and if you're watching tonight, pick up the phone, call the Department of Homeland Security, work with us to build facilities in your state. Come on, there ain't enough people getting their rights suppressed as it is. Come on. What's wrong with you? No amount of armed guards or government spend can shield this facility from our legal scrutiny, Jackson said on Wednesday. We'll use every tool at our disposal to end this cruel experiment and defend the rights of every person trapped inside of this unconstitutional abomination. Well, don't have any of those fucking parades that don't work. You call them protests. They're not protests. They're fucking parades. They're parades. Why is this not fucking working? Okay. PBS looks like it's going away at some point. I know the Republicans had been threatening for years and years and years to get rid of it. Now they will probably do it. Doing Trump's bidding, Senate GOP votes to gut public media and foreign aid in the dead of night. In the early hours yesterday, Senate Republicans passed legislation that would claw back $9 billion in previously approved congressional funding for public broadcasting and foreign aid programs targeted by Trump's White House. The final vote count was 51-48, with Senators Susan Collins from Maine and Lisa Murkowski out of Alaska, both Republicans, joining Democrats in opposing the package, which now heads back to the GOP-controlled House for final passage. The legislation would cement some of the Trump administration's lawless unilateral attacks on programs approved by Congress with bipartisan support. At 2 a.m., Republicans just passed a bill to defund public broadcasting and life-saving aid because Trump told them to. They wouldn't even protect rural radio or emergency alerts, said Senator Patty Murray out of Washington State, the vice chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, warning that the GOP's partisan clawback of funding imperils all future spending negotiations. Again, remember, federal spending like that, you don't have to claw it back. It's all fiat currency. They could fund all this shit and still have a military budget at some point, right? I have a new mute button over here. I like it. It's nice. I get a little up in the head. You don't need to hear that. Congress should decide what we spend and what we cut, not Trump and not Russ Vought, Murray added, referring to the director of the Office of Management and Budget. In a floor speech ahead of the Thursday morning vote, Murray said Vought refused to be specific about which programs would be cut if the rescissions bill passes. It's one of the great outrages of this package, said Murray. At our hearing with him, he refused to go into detail. He stonewalled us. He asked, and we asked. We asked and we asked. The chair, the Republican chair, even asked him about this, but OMB would not tell us. The question is, what will you cut? The answer has been, pass it, we'll see. The White House rescissions request was broadly outlined in a May memo authored by Vought, an architect of the Far-Right Project 2025 agenda, and also created Homelander, didn't he? Vought, wasn't that Vought Industries? The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which helps fund PBS and NPR, is expected to face over $1 billion in cuts, while the rest of the rescissions package targets foreign assistance. PBS I'm worried about because that's mostly local shit. NPR, I could really give a shit. NPR is such a fucking liberal shitbag, but PBS is not. Crazy times indeed. Thanks for the 10 spot there, Laney. Appreciate you. Crazy times indeed. With this vote, Senate Republicans are telling us everything we need to know about their priorities, said Alex Jaquez, the Groundwork Collaborative's chief of policy and advocacy, after passing a tax law that gives a massive giveaway to billionaires and raises costs on working families. Senate Republicans are now codifying DOJ's deeply unpopular and reckless cuts to vital programs. Once again, Republicans are failing to deliver on the one thing they promised, lower prices. Instead, they're waging a campaign that will make life more expensive and difficult for working families while lining the pockets of the wealthy. Well, what else did you think? You should have known that they going day one that they were going to do that shit, because that's all they do. And the Democrats do nothing to stop them. During the marathon amendment process, Republicans rejected Democratic proposals to shield public safety alerts and prevent cuts to international disaster relief programs. Vought has signaled that the White House will likely submit more rescissions requests if the $9 billion in cuts makes it through Congress. Kate Riley, the president and CEO of America's Public Television Station, said in a statement following the Senate vote that the rescissions bill would eliminate federal funding to the local public television stations throughout this country that provide essential life-saving public safety services, proven educational services, and community connections to their communities every day for free. Well, you know, if you still have to pay for electricity to run the TV. But yeah, I get what you're saying. This elimination of federal funding will decimate public media and put local stations at risk of going dark, cutting off service to communities that rely on them, many of which have no other access to locally controlled media, Riley warned. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse accused Republicans of weaponizing the rescissions process to attack some of their favorite enemies like NPR, Elmo, or Food for Starving People Overseas. The thing that's particularly dangerous about it is that this is probably a test case, Whitehouse added. If they pull it off with these topics, they'll move on to more and more topics, bringing their Musk-type chainsaw to projects which Congress has approved on a bipartisan basis, put into law, and funded. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, they're going. Yeah, this is just like Argentina. We're starting to turn into Argentina, right? With that Javier Milei, that's who Trump is. These austerity measures that all it does is hurt regular ass people and enriches others, right? Enriches the already rich ass people. It's very, very disturbing, enraging, all that. It's just, ugh. And we got to stand up to it. We got to shut this shit down. And like I said, protests themselves, it's not enough. We need more. We need more Calgon. Meanwhile, China is doing all this shit in the world. Like I said, don't fall in love with countries, but you can tell people what they're doing. You know, when the United States goes to a country, they bring bombs. When China goes to a country, they bring bridge building materials with them. Elmo. Oh my God, I'm not putting that up. But good to see you. Elmo. Jesus. China on track to surpass U.S. yet again, but this time in nuclear power by 2030. 2030. I'm pretty sure 2030 is when America is going to end. I really do. Maybe Elmo will just rob Republican ads for Coke money. Yay! You guys are awesome. China is poised to overtake the U.S. as the world's leading producer of nuclear energy by 2030, marking a significant milestone in Beijing's steady ascent as a global technological and energy powerhouse, according to a forthcoming report by the White House Council for Economic Advisors, or of economic advisors cited by Fox Business. The report acknowledges that China now generates approximately twice the electricity output of the United States and continues to expand its nuclear capabilities at an unprecedented pace. Based on these investments, China is projected to become the largest nuclear power producer in the world in 5 years, basically. The report concedes, reflecting Washington's growing concern of China's strategic advantage in energy development and basically everything else. While China's electricity generation has consistently grown between 5% and 10% annually over the past 2 decades, the U.S. has experienced virtually no growth in the same period. Surprise, surprise. The report points to this disparity as a wake-up call, linking China's robust energy expansion to its broader dominance in emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence. In other words, time to bring some democracy to China. To effectively compete for AI dominance with China, the U.S. needs to prioritize the rapid expansion of low-cost domestic baseload generation. Yeah, you and me both. My doctor says I need more fiber. Maybe that means the same thing. The report admits, underscoring the central role of energy infrastructure in the global AI leadership. China, by contrast, has already made nuclear a key pillar of its clean energy strategy, with 55 reactors in operation and 27 more under construction. Its ambitious target of reaching 120 to 150 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2030 further solidifies its lead. Although the U.S. still has more reactors, 94 in total, China's momentum and long-term vision are shifting the global balance. Nuclear currently comprises just 5% of China's total power mix compared to 18% in the U.S., but the scale and pace of China's expansion suggests the gap will soon narrow. Trumpy acknowledged the stakes of the AI race earlier this week, asserting, "The United States is way ahead of China in artificial intelligence and is poised to dominate in every industry." Yet his administration's increasing urgency to boost domestic nuclear development through fast-striking permits, expanding uranium production, and turning to advanced technologies suggests an implicit acknowledgement that China has set the benchmark. According to Bloomberg, Trump is expected to present his vision for U.S. leadership in AI during a major speech on July 23rd, though Washington's own report points to China's growing supremacy in the foundational areas that will shape the future of global competition. In fact, as of April this year, China has already become the global leader in nuclear energy capacity. According to a report from the China Nuclear Energy Administration, the country currently boasts 102 nuclear units that are either operational, under construction, or approved, with a total capacity of 113 million kilowatts. Of these, 28 reactors are under active construction, more than any other country, reinforcing China's position as the global leader in nuclear construction for 18 consecutive years. In 2024 alone, China's nuclear plants generated 444.7 billion kilowatt hours, accounting for nearly 5% of national electricity output. A June 2024 report from the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation warned that the U.S. is up to 15 years behind China in deploying advanced high-tech nuclear systems. That's because we're going around the world bombing people instead of innovating back here at home. The report credited China's edge to consistent state support, rapid build times averaging just 7 years, and ultra-low financing rates provided by state-owned banks, conditions that have also helped China dominate over sectors like renewables and electric vehicles. As the AI race intensifies, the foundation beneath it, energy infrastructure, may already be tipping in China's favor. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You come over to somebody's house and punch them in the face, they're not going to want anything to do with you ever again. You come over, you bring a casserole or something like that. Yeah, come on back. Yeah. China uses the carrot, the United States and the West use the stick. And you're seeing what's winning. The carrot is winning. Why use nukes when U.S. has good, clean coal? That's right. Three Dog Night. Nice. I love a Three Dog Night reference. Meanwhile, Germany and UK wanting to poke the bear. Not a good idea, as they deliver long-range weapons to Ukraine under a new pact. You stupid, stupid people. Ukraine is set to receive new long-range weapon systems developed through joint efforts by British and German defense industries. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz announced yesterday the deliveries are expected to begin within the next few weeks and continue over the coming months. The statement followed the signing of a new bilateral agreement between Germany and the UK. Chancellor Merz and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer formalized what they described as a historic treaty focused on friendship and murder, and enhanced defense cooperation during a joint appearance in Berlin. Speaking at a press conference alongside Starmer, Merz stressed the expanded scope of military assistance to Ukraine. We had a detailed discussion about military support for Ukraine, and this is not only about air defense, but also about Ukraine's ability to better defend itself with long-range systems. You want to hit Moscow. That's what you want. We call this long-range fire, he said during the event, which was broadcast by Germany's Phoenix TV. He added that Ukraine will soon receive significant additional support in this area, including through the industrial cooperation that we have established with Ukraine. The delivery of these advanced systems comes in light of a deepening of European defense collaboration in support of Ukraine amid ongoing hostilities with Russia. The weapons transfer is part of a broader framework outlined in the Kensington Treaty signed on July 17th in London, the first post-World War II bilateral defense treaty between the UK and Germany. The pact not only strengthens joint military production, but also facilitates financing and technological cooperation with Ukraine's domestic arms industry. Germany has already committed approximately 5 billion euros to support Ukraine's production of long-range strike capabilities and has lifted previous range restrictions on German-supplied weapons, enabling Kiev to strike targets within Russian territory. British-German collaboration is also laying the foundation for future deep precision systems with ranges exceeding 2,000 kilometers designed to ensure sustained deterrence capabilities in Eastern Europe. These moves reflect a decisive shift in European defense policy amid increasing urgency to counter growing Russian military presence. What's up, Wesley? You're about halfway in, I guess. You're fine. Good to see you, bud. Moscow has responded with sharp warnings. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov condemned Germany's posture, suggesting it reveals the true intentions behind Western support of Kiev. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov criticized the deepening UK-Germany military alignment as a destabilizing factor for European security. Former President Dmitry Medvedev went further, cautioning that continued Western arms deliveries to Ukraine may provoke preemptive Russian strikes. Uh-oh. Poking the bear. Pokey, pokey, poke, poke, poke. In a statement reported by TASS, he described the expanding range and sophistication of Western Europe sophistication of Western weapons is what I do on the weekend, as justification for escalating Russia's own military posture. Russian officials argue that this latest escalation marks a direct provocation, framing the treaty and weapons transfer as an existential threat that could draw Europe into broader conflict. Uh-oh. Russia's like, look, y'all keep doing this fucking shit, man. It's gonna be shit's going down. Again, I don't trust Russia that much, but I trust them a hell of a lot more than the United States and the West now. That's for sure. We move over to Turkey, and you're like, fuck it, man. We want some nukes. Can we have some nukes, please? Most Turkish people say Turkey should obtain nuclear weapons in a new poll. Yeah. It's like, fuck it. If you get a nuke, nobody fucks with you, right? A recent survey in Turkey reveals a significant shift in public opinion. Pardon me. Over nuclear weapons, with the majority of respondents now supporting their development in response to heightened regional tensions, particularly following Israeli strikes on Iran last month. That's like, well, if they'll attack anybody, well, maybe they won't attack people with nukes. The poll conducted by Research Istanbul, but not Constantinople, between July 1st and the 5th, surveyed 2,000 people nationwide. Its findings highlight growing insecurity among Turkish citizens regarding national defense and Turkey's ability to withstand potential threats. Despite Turkey being a party to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, the NPT, since 1979, which legally prohibits Ankara from developing, acquiring, or testing nuclear weapons, 71% of respondents believe Turkey should start developing such arms, with only 18% opposed. The other, 11%? I don't know what's going on with them. While the Turkish government has made heavy investments in the defense industry in recent years, public confidence regarding air defense systems remains low. Nearly half of those surveyed doubt the effectiveness of Turkey's air defense systems in the event of an attack. The recent success of Iranian ballistic missiles in penetrating Israel's advanced air defenses and causing considerable damage has further fueled debate within Turkey over the nation's own defense capabilities. Skepticism also extends to Turkey's alliances. According to the poll, 72% of respondents do not believe NATO would effectively defend Turkey if it were attacked. Yeah, that's some healthy skepticism right there. These findings reflect growing public anxiety amid escalating regional conflicts in the Middle East, the Balkans, and the Caucasus, Caucasus, said Erdi Ozturk, a professor at London Metropolitan University. The pervasive sense of external threat is driving Turkish society to consider security measures that were previously taboo, including the pursuit of nuclear deterrence. Ozturk added that despite long-standing political divisions, security concerns are increasingly uniting Turkish society around a common mindset. We want the bomb. To address immediate concerns over its aging air fleet, Ankara has recently negotiated deals to purchase F-16 and Eurofighter jets as a stopgap measure until its own fifth-generation aircraft, the Khan, is delivered, expected as early as 2028. Many citizens believe Turkey must rely more heavily on its own military capabilities, Ozturk explained, especially as ongoing negotiations over fighter jets like the F-16 and F-35 fuel public skepticism about the reliability of foreign partners. Ankara has not yet made any statements or taken any steps indicating research into nuclear weapons. Turkey is currently building its first nuclear power plant, ACLU, in partnership with Russia's Rosatom. Estimated at costing $20 billion, it will consist of 4 reactors with a combined capacity of 4,800 megawatts, expected to provide around 10% of Turkey's electricity needs when it goes into operation next year. Ozturk further noted that widespread skepticism regarding NATO's willingness or ability to defend Turkey is closely linked to deep-seated anti-American sentiment, which continues to be a significant factor shaping public attitudes towards security and defense policy. Yeah, pretty much the Turkey saying we don't trust our buddies. We don't trust nobody. We should probably take a page out of the North Korea playbook. Get yourself a nuke, and then nobody will fuck with you. Sure, they'll call you names and call you like the axis of evil and stuff, but they won't put troops in your country. How you like me now? Finally, in our news block here, Kenya is protesting. Protests rock Kakuma refugee camp amid U.S. humanitarian aid cuts. Widespread demonstrations have rocked security in Kakuma refugee camp in northwestern Kenya on Monday, with police firing live bullets at the protesters, according to local media. Live bullets. The protests erupted over food and water shortages in the camp. According to residents, conditions in the camp have deteriorated significantly, with many struggling to access basic necessities. The shortages come as humanitarian aid in Kenya has been reduced following funding cuts from USAID. The camp, which is one of the largest in the world, is home to around 200,000 refugees and asylum seekers, according to Amnesty International. The camp mainly houses refugees from neighboring South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Somalia. Mama Kayembe, a Congolese refugee in Kakuma refugee camp, said, since Trump became president, now Kenyans have shifted all the blame on him. Workers are not getting paid, and it's blamed on Trump. No medication in hospital, it's Trump. Now we have to pay for school fees, and it's Trump. Everything is Trump. We are tired of Trump. You and me both. The aid cuts have not only led to hunger, but have also contributed to rising insecurity within the camp. Without alternative sources of funding, there are concerns that the situation in the camp could spiral further out of control. The world is starting to crack under this pressure. And when the world cracks like that, something is bound to happen, right? Are we getting there? Are we getting to that point? We'll see. Like I said, we got a huge propaganda watch. 2 big videos, long videos. So it's going to be like school. You know, when the teacher would come in with the TV on the rolling cart, you know, with the VCR below, and then they turn off the lights. It's going to be one of those deals in our propaganda watch, because we got 2 good videos, one by James Lee and one by our buddy Franco from Frank Analysis. But in the meantime, a symbol of Lebanese resistance is finally free. Maybe the tide is turning. I doubt it.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish the same things are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
George Abdallah to be freed after 41 years of resistance behind bars. It is right there. This is in France. The French judiciary has officially approved the release of George Ibrahim Abdallah, the Lebanese activist and revolutionary who has spent over 4 decades in prison in France, according to statements made Thursday by his legal team. Abdallah, a prominent figure in leftist resistance circles and a staunch supporter of the Palestinian cause, is set to be released on the 25th of this month, his defense lawyer told Al Mayadeen. The decision marks the end of a decades-long legal and political battle over his continued imprisonment. Al Mayadeen's correspondent in France reported that George Abdallah's lawyer has officially informed him of the court's decision granting his release. Speaking to Al Mayadeen, Abdallah's lawyer confirmed that political interference, particularly from the U.S., who else, had delayed the legal proceedings that should have led to his release much earlier. The U.S. exerted pressure to obstruct the legal process leading to his release, he stated, framing the case as a political decision rather than a judicial one. The lawyer also conveyed his congratulations to Abdallah's family. Abdallah has refused to pay any form of compensation as a condition of his release, reinforcing his longstanding stance against conceding to demands he considers politically motivated. The Lebanese embassy in Paris is set to handle the official procedures to facilitate the transfer of Abdallah to the airport ahead of his return to Lebanon, according to Al Mayadeen's correspondent in the French capital. Abdallah will be returning to Beirut following his scheduled release later this month. That's according to his defense team. His brother, Robert, emphasized that the delay in George's release was due to sustained political pressure. The obstruction of his release was a result of political pressure from the U.S. on France, he said. Abdallah, 74, has been eligible for release under French law, has long been eligible for release under French law. In November, an enforcement court ruled in favor of his release, concluding that he no longer poses a serious threat if released. However, the decision was frozen following an appeal by France's national anti-terrorism prosecutor, delaying what supporters say is long overdue justice. The case of Abdallah is one of the most politically charged detention cases in modern French history. Originally arrested in 1984 and sentenced to life in 1987, he has been eligible for parole since 1999. Despite repeated legal victories and the support of international human rights organizations, successive French governments, under pressure from Washington and Tel Aviv, have refused to sign off on his release. Fucking French pussies. Supporters, legal observers, and human rights advocates will be watching closely for his release. Abdallah, a former member of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the PFLP, has so far served 41 years in prison, which makes him the longest held prisoner in Europe. He founded the Marxist-Leninist Lebanese Armed Revolutionary Factions, the LARF, which claimed responsibility for 4 operations in France during the 80s. The Lebanese revolutionary was accused of taking part in the assassination of U.S. military attaché Charles Robert Ray and Israeli diplomat Yaakov Bersimontov in 1982 and was sentenced on those accusations. Abdallah never responded to the list of accusations and considered that the French judicial system was despicably taking the resistance action out of context. After his trial for the alleged killing of the diplomats, Abdallah was handed a life sentence, significantly harsher than the 10 years sought by prosecutors. His lawyer, Jacques Vergès, called the sentence a declaration of war. Abdallah maintains that he is a fighter advocating for Palestinian rights, not a criminal. He became eligible for parole in 1999, but all previous applications were denied, except in 2013 when his release was conditioned on expulsion from France. However, then Interior Minister Manuel Valls refused to implement the order, keeping Abdallah in prison. So he is going to be free by next week, I think, is what it is. They said the 25th. If you work in a missile factory, are you really a civilian? Yeah. What if your husband is the lead engineer at a giant aerospace company that makes weapons of mass destruction too? Probably them too. So at least a little bit of good news today, at least for Abdallah there. And an RT reporter talks about being detained in the UK as journalism is a crime in the UK. This is RT reporter after detention there. RT's Lebanon Bureau Chief Steve Sweeney says British counterterrorism officials who briefly detained him at a London airport questioned him about alleged links to Russian officials. They also asked whether he still loved Britain. Who would love Britain? RT editor-in-chief Margarita Simonian revealed in a Telegram post on Wednesday that Sweeney had been apprehended on arrival at Heathrow Airport in London and interrogated at length about his work for the Russian broadcaster. The British journalist, who has since returned to Lebanon, appeared live on RT on Thursday, saying that as soon as he got off the plane, he was met by two plainclothes police officers who took him away for questioning. The officers told Sweeney that he was not under suspicion or arrest, but merely detained, and we know how that is, which still allowed them to seize his phones, laptop, and other devices, he recalled. During the questioning, which lasted about 4 hours, the officers were particularly focusing on Russia and my reporting for RT. They asked me whether I have links to Russian officials, which is a fairly broad description, Sweeney said. Then they switched focus to Lebanon, where they were very interested in the nature of my relationship with Hezbollah, for example, the journalist stated. The officers also asked about my feelings toward my own country, whether I love my country, whether I feel uncomfortable in my country. Why do I come back to my country if I don't like it? He recalled. According to Sweeney, he flew to the UK to spend a week with family and friends, take my daughter to a concert, and see my mother. How dare you? Seeing your mother. The journalist said that following his detention, he could no longer feel safe in my own country. As a result of the dystopian policies pursued by the government of Keir Starmer, he has become a dissident living in exile simply because he was doing his job, he added. The political climate is not just the same in Britain. Is not just the same in Britain. This is Europe-wide. You know, journalism is not a crime, but in those countries, journalism is a crime. Yeah. So the UK is getting just as bad as the United States is, right? I feel bad for my UK peeps over there that have to deal with that bullshit. And it's not just the UK and it's not just the United States. It's around the world. You're starting any of these Western countries, you're like Germany, they put the foot down on people protesting. All because of that APAC money, and they're probably on the Jeffrey Epstein list that definitely exists. Speaking of the UK armed police threat to pro-Palestine protester branded dystopian. Campaigners have described footage of a pro-Palestine protester being threatened with arrest by two British police officers dystopian, saying it highlights the fear and confusion felt in the UK following the prescription of Palestine action, basically labeling them as terrorists. On Monday evening, two armed officers from Kent Police in the southeast of England threatened 42-year-old Laura Merton with arrest under the Terrorism Act for holding a Palestinian flag and holding signs saying "Free Gaza" and "Israel is committing genocide." Under arrest. It's not Nazi Germany, but it is Nazi. In footage filmed in Canterbury by Mornin and published by The Guardian, the officers can be heard asking the peaceful protester if she supports Palestine Action, the direct action group banned by the British government earlier this month. Mornin says she doesn't before one officer tells her that she might be breaking the law by expressing an opinion or belief that is supportive of a proscribed organization. Mentioning freedom of Gaza, Israel, genocide, all of that comes under proscribed groups, which are terror groups that have been dictated by the government, one of the officers says, adding that the phrase Free Gaza is supportive of Palestine Action. The officers tell Mornin they will arrest her if she does not give them her name and address, which she does reluctantly. Tim Crossland, a former British government lawyer and activist with campaign group Defend Our Juries, told Middle East Eye this dystopian incident reveals the full totalitarian implications of the banning order against Palestine Action. Anyone in Britain publicly expressing opposition to the genocide of Palestinians is now at risk of arrest for terrorism offenses, he added. Mornin herself also described the experience as authoritarian and dystopian, telling The Guardian that nothing she was displaying or saying could be deemed as supportive of the proscribed group. Get your egregories! Good to see you, bud. Nirmer Sultani, a reader in law at SOAS University in London, described this action by Kent Police as clear evidence of the detrimental effects of the misguided use of counterterrorism law to police political speech and deter social activism. It is an excessively overbroad interpretation of the proscription of one small group of activists and is thus an unreasonable and unlawful encroachment on the rights to protest, assembly, and free speech, Sultani told the paper. In an initial statement given to The Guardian, a spokesperson for the Kent Police said, "Under the Terrorism Act, it is a criminal offense to carry or display items that may arouse reasonable suspicion that an individual is a member or supporter of a proscribed organization such as Palestine Action." I wonder if he was wearing a mask when he said it. But contacted by Middle East Eye, the police force seemed to have changed its view of the incident, with a spokesperson saying, following a complaint about the behavior of an individual on a traffic roundabout in Canterbury on Monday, July 14th, officers attended to investigate. Having ascertained no offenses had been committed, no further action was taken. Asked by Middle East Eye to confirm that Kent police officers are not treating shows of Palestinian solidarity, including banners, scarves, and flags, as potentially criminal acts, the spokesperson did not reply. I wonder why. In a statement sent to Middle East Eye after this article was published, UK Security Minister Dan Jarvis said, "Freedom to protest lawfully is a cornerstone of our democracy." Palestine's actions proscription does not and must not interfere with people's legitimate right to express support for Palestinians. Ben Jamal, director of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, the PCS, told Middle East Eye a climate is being created, seemingly endorsed by the leadership of Kent Police and across the political establishment, that if you've got a Palestine flag, if you're talking about a genocide or calling for free Gaza, then you can be subjected to this kind of treatment. Jamal said the climate of repression around protest and Palestinian solidarity in Britain has never been this bad. He said he thought the government was responding to the size of the movement that's grown in response to this genocide and the recognition across the British establishment that they're out of sync with public opinion, that they are complicit in supporting Israel's genocide. In the UK, it's also part of a broader crackdown on the right to protest that began under the Conservative governments and has now accelerated under Labour, Jamal said. Sultani said there was an increasing sense of politicization of the police force in Britain under the Labour government, as was clear from the Met's increasingly restrictive approach to the pro-Palestine protests in London. The legal scholar added that it was ironic that even though hardline former Conservative Home Secretary Suella Braverman is not in office anymore, that Kent Police is granting her wish of seeking to effectively outlaw and ban the Palestinian flag and the anti-genocide slogans from the public sphere. For more than 21 months, Israel has relentlessly bombed the besieged Gaza Strip, displacing the entire 2.3 million population multiple times and killing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, mostly civilians. Since the beginning of the war, hundreds of thousands have demonstrated against it on a regular basis across Britain. Jamal said he thought the crackdown on protests, including the prescription of Palestine action, quote, is designed to intimidate. It's designed to make people think they are doing something really toxic. Exactly. This narrative has at its heart a deep anti-Palestinian racism. To call for rights of Palestinian people is seen as being barbaric and worthy of suspicion, Jamal said. As one of the organizers of the National Palestine marches that have been taking place in cities across the UK, Jamal has had extensive dealings with police forces, particularly London's Metropolitan Police. On January 18th, the Met banned a march in London on the pretext that worshippers at a nearby synagogue would feel harassed. Aww. I'm sure they didn't feel that way during 9/11 when all the Muslims were feeling harassed. But anyway, Jamal argued that the media environment around the marches, with protesters frequently accused of being anti-Semitic terrorist sympathizers rather than ordinary people opposed to Israel's war on Gaza, propaganda, and the police response to them were creating an environment in which some British Jews felt unsafe. Jamal said that police chiefs in London had told him that their officers would deploy common sense on the ground. But that, despite this, he had witnessed them trying to break up a multi-faith carol service and arresting people for straying into supposed no-go zones. The police say they will employ common sense, but this is often not our experience on the ground, he said. Right. Yeah. Meanwhile, in Jordan, Jordan, what a piece of shit place that is. Jordan cracks down on pro-Palestine activism in largest arrest campaign since 1989. The Jordanian government has been carrying out a heavy crackdown on people who have expressed a solidarity with the besieged Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, according to the Middle East Eye, on July 15th. A widespread campaign led by the General Intelligence Department, the GID, is targeting activists and anyone who has sent financial donations or other kinds of support to the victims of Israel's war on Gaza. Several sources inside Jordan confirmed to Middle East Eye. Hundreds of people have been detained or questioned as part of the campaign. The investigation was done purely for the sake of Israel. Jordan had nothing to do with it. An anonymous detainee is cited as telling the outlet. A Jordanian political source told Middle East Eye that Saudi Arabia and the UAE are two of the forces pushing for this crackdown, adding that Amman hopes to secure financial aid from the two Gulf states in return. Money. Saudi Arabia and Israel are also involved in the push, according to the political source. The report added that people are being detained and interrogated without charge. Most of the arrested are interrogated and then released without anyone knowing what has happened to them, other detainees say. Intelligence officers have threatened those they arrest and told them not to say anything about what has happened to them. They are told that if they do reveal anything, they will be rearrested. Jordanian intelligence also told detainees that they were not to disclose the reasons for their disappearance. Aside from the hundreds of people who have been arrested, others are told to voluntarily report for interrogation in daylight hours. At the end of the day, they are told to report back again the next day, with the process often continuing for several days. Most, if not all, of the detainees were interrogated about their solidarity with Gaza. The investigations focused on sending donations, financial support, or in-kind aid to war's victims, the sources revealed. It has been described by Jordanians as the largest crackdown in decades. Many are being held without access to lawyers or trials. A campaign of this size has not been launched since 1989 riots and protests against government cuts on food subsidies. The sources also say that public anger about the situation is starting to grow, particularly over the unknown fate of many prisoners. The campaign is focusing on Palestine supporters as well as opposition groups and political Islamists such as the Muslim Brotherhood, which was banned in Jordan this past April. The banning of the Muslim Brotherhood came after Jordanian security services said they found rocket and drone manufacturing facilities outside the capital Amman. The rockets being made had a range of 3 to 5 kilometers, according to the official statement at the time. Amman said the plot was linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. It claimed 16 Muslim Brotherhood-linked individuals were arrested in connection with the case and had previously undergone technical training in Lebanon. Some of these weapons were allegedly bound for resistance groups in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Muslim Brotherhood elements have participated in the Jordanian protests against Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza since the war began in 2023. Many of these protests took place outside the Israeli embassy in Jordan and were suppressed by the authorities. Suppression. Here's a story from the water, wet, sky, blue category as Zelensky becoming more authoritarian. Uh-oh. We all knew this. He's a puppet dictator backed by the West. What do you expect? Thank you, Kill. Appreciate you. Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky, or Voldemort as he's known in some circles, is facing growing accusations of authoritarianism, according to Financial Times. The outlet has cited opposition politicians, civil society leaders, and diplomats as saying that Zelensky and his aides are using extraordinary powers granted under the martial law in force since the escalation of the conflict with Russia to sideline critics, muzzle civil society leaders, and consolidate control. In other words, dictator. Earlier this month, masked operatives raided the homes of prominent anti-corruption activist Vitaly Shabunin and former infrastructure minister Alexander Kubrakov. Although authorities claim the searches were part of ongoing corruption probes, both men described the actions as politically motivated and aimed at intimidating critics of Zelensky's inner circle. They also denied the charges. The raids followed sanctions against several high-profile politicians, including former President Peter Poroshenko, a longtime political rival of Zelensky who lost to him in the 2019 election and has remained a staunch critic. Meanwhile, Zelensky has been reshaping the Ukrainian government in the latest reshuffle. First Deputy Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko, a trusted ally, has replaced a long-serving Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. Concerns about creeping authoritarianism have already been raised in the Western press. The Economist has recently reported that the government in Kiev has become entangled in palace politics with internal purges and infighting threatening to fracture the state from within. Earlier this week, Ukraine's parliament extended martial law for another 90 days at Zelensky's request, marking the 16th such extension since the conflict with Russia escalated in 2022. Under martial law, Zelensky suspended national elections and chose not to step down when his presidential term expired last year. A recent public opinion poll suggested that if there were a runoff election between Zelensky and former armed forces commander Valery Zaluzhny, one of the several influential figures sidelined under the current administration, the latter would likely beat Zelensky. Moscow, for its part, has declared Zelensky illegitimate, arguing that any future peace agreement signed under his name could later be invalidated due to the expiration of his term and the suspension of democratic processes. Right? Well, he's just trying to keep up with Trump, that's all, in his authoritarianism. Or any U.S. president's authoritarianism, no matter how light-sounding it is. You know, you can, hang on a second. You know, you can rent crowds. You can do that. It's a thing. You know, like if you need them for, I don't know, some sort of propaganda bullshit, you can rent a crowd. And the Rent-A-Crowd CEO lifts the lid on U.S. protest industry's dirty secrets. Oh, no. Political protests in the U.S. are rarely acts of pure conviction, according to Adam Swart, CEO of a prominent publicity firm that supplies paid demonstrators for political and corporate events. Swart, who founded Crowds on Demand in 2012, revealed what was described as the dirty secrets of his profession in an interview with Fox News on Tuesday. His company recruits and manages individuals who appear at rallies, protests, and public events on behalf of paying clients. I wonder how many are at Trump's rallies. I mean, I wonder how many people Hillary Clinton paid to not show up to her shit when she was running. Swart argued that compensating activists is not unethical. He said the service allows people to engage in causes they support but might not otherwise be able to attend. All activism is what I call incentivized activism, he said. We compensate people for having their views known, but most people who attend demonstrations have some reason for being there other than the so-called purity of their beliefs. Really? Swart offered examples to bolster his claim, including the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. How many Real Housewives went out to protest for the Black Lives Matter campaign in the summer of 2020, he said. Do you think it's because they cared about institutional racism, or do you think it's to flex on social media? I'd say a bit of both. Crowds brought to you by George Soros. He added that labor unions sometimes pressure members to attend demonstrations with threats of less favorable work shifts, and political aides are often expected to take part in campaign events during their personal time. Paid demonstrators typically earn several $100s per day, according to Swart. Nationwide publicity campaigns, he said, can cost millions. He noted that he recently turned down a $20 million offer from political interest opposed to the Trump administration. Swart emphasized that his rejection of the offer was not driven by ideology, but by concerns that the campaign's likely failure would damage his firm's reputation. The problem is that these are the same consultant class who propped up former U.S. President Joe Biden, who propped up former Vice President Kamala Harris, who fundamentally failed so miserably in the 2024 election, and who have failed every single day since then in reining in Trump's agenda, he said. Paid crowds. See, that's another thing you have to worry about. Paid crowds and also paid instigators, too. You know, your agents provocateur, that sort of thing. Oops. Sorry about that. Wrong one, Billy. Let's try this one. All right. So now it's, can somebody get the lights in the back? It's film time. We've got a couple of videos here for you. James Lee's coming up here shortly. This one's a little long. This is about 13 minutes. So if you got to go potty or whatever, you know, I would, probably do so. Franco over at Frank Analysis has been putting out some great videos lately, mostly more kind of like personal, how to change yourself, how to change, you know, what's going on with you to be a better person, to be a better person for yourself and the world. But he's talking about the psychological aspects here about Iran and why Iran doesn't trust us. So, like I said, it's a little bit of a lengthy thing, but it's worth it. It's chock full of good information about the history, or more recent history, of the United States and Iran and their relationship, and why do people in the West, or why do people in Iran not trust the West? Good question. Here's this is from Frank Analysis, and I'll have the link in the description after the show for you to check this out.
When people hear about Iran's hostility toward the United States, the common reaction is, well, they've always hated us. But that's not the full story. The deeper question is, what causes entire nations to lose trust over generations? What leads a group of people to turn their back on another country so completely? To understand this, we have to move beyond surface level narratives and look at patterns beneath history. These patterns are not random. They are driven by power, fear, and the desire to control not just land and resources, but consciousness itself. In this video, we're not just going to recount events. We're going to trace the energetic imprint of betrayal, manipulation, and resistance. Because when you see how this pattern repeats, you begin to understand not only the Iran-US relationship, but the deeper story of how empires rise, how they fall, and what this all reveals about our collective evolution. In the early 1950s, Iran stood at a crossroads filled with hope. After years of colonial interference and foreign exploitation, the country began moving toward a new future. Iran was embracing secular democracy, and the people were ready to shape their own destiny. Leading this vision was Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, a popular and principled leader who believed in national sovereignty and reform. Mossadegh made a powerful decision. He nationalized Iran's oil industry, aiming to return the wealth of the land to the people who lived on it. For Iranians, this wasn't just about money. It represented dignity, freedom, and the right to self-determination. They were tired of seeing their resources extracted for the benefit of foreign corporations while they remained in poverty. This action created immediate backlash from Western powers. Britain and the United States saw their control slipping away. Mossadegh's decision disrupted a global pattern where wealthy nations quietly extracted resources from less powerful ones, maintaining control through economic manipulation and political influence. Iran's democratic path was beginning to show what a self-directed, sovereign nation could look like. For a moment, the future felt open, but that vision was soon interrupted by outside forces that were not ready to let go of their grip. What followed would set the stage for decades of mistrust, conflict, and resistance. In 1953, something devastating unfolded behind closed doors. The United States and British governments, through their intelligence agencies, launched a secret operation known as Operation Ajax. Their goal was simple: remove Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh and restore control over Iran's oil and direction. But the method was anything but simple. They didn't invade with tanks. Instead, they used manipulation. They paid street mobs to riot and create chaos. They bribed Iranian officials to turn against their own people. They planted news stories to distort public opinion and frame Mossadegh as unstable and dangerous. The entire nation was pushed into confusion and fear with outside hands pulling the strings. So this wasn't only a coup in the political sense, but a message, a signal to the world that self-determination would be allowed only when it aligned with the desires of global powers. Any nation that tried to choose its own path, especially if it involved protecting its natural resources, would be destabilized from within. The consequences ran deeper than politics. Iran experienced a collective wound, betrayal, humiliation, and the collapse of a dream. Trust and democratic process faded. A sovereign people were told they didn't have the right to direct their own future. The trauma of that movement still echoes through generations, shaping the way Iranians view the West and how they define freedom, resistance, and resilience. After the coup, Iran's leadership shifted dramatically. The Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was placed back in power with full support from the United States. He presented himself as a modernizing force, someone who would bring Iran into the future with Western-style progress, development, and prosperity. But beneath the surface, his rule was deeply authoritarian. His government created a powerful secret police force called the Savak. This group was trained with foreign help and became notorious for torture, surveillance, and silencing oppositions. Dissent was no longer a risk, it was a guaranteed sentence. Writers, students, activists, and even religious leaders were imprisoned or disappeared simply for questioning the system. Many Iranians didn't view this as progress. They saw it as a new form of colonization. Instead of boots on the ground, it was control through influence, technology, and fear. The Shah's modernization projects often served the elite and global investors while widening inequality and erasing traditional values. Skyscrapers rose as voices were silenced. This created a deep contradiction. The country looked advanced from the outside, but many people felt spiritually and culturally displaced. Roads and buildings grew, but trust and freedom withered. The pain was not just in the policies, but in the sense of betrayal, watching one's own land serve foreign interests while pretending to wear the mask of independence. That tension built up for decades, and it never truly disappeared. In 1979, the Iranian people rose up. The revolution was a shift in leadership, a change in policies, and most significantly, a collective outcry that had been building for decades. After years of foreign interference, exploitation, and internal repression, the country reached a breaking point. This movement was a reclamation of sovereignty, identity, and voice. The hostage crisis that followed was a message to the world. You ignored our pain, now you will witness it. The anger was real, but so was the heartbreak behind it. To the West, the revolution seemed sudden and irrational, but that reaction revealed a deeper ignorance of the wounds inflicted. What looked like aggression from the outside was, to many Iranians, a long overdue response to betrayal, domination, and silence. In the years after the Iranian Revolution, a new pattern took hold, one shaped by sanctions, unalivements, and endless proxy wars. The message from Western powers was clear. There would be a cost for reclaiming independence. Iran was labeled a threat, an axis of evil, a danger to global order. But these narratives served a deeper purpose. By casting Iran as the villain, governments in the West could justify bloated military budgets, expanded intelligence operations, and tighter control over their own citizens. What happens in other countries outside of the US can have a direct impact on its own people. Fear became the currency of loyalty. If the public stayed afraid, they would continue to support policies that kept power concentrated and questions unasked. And this wasn't just about Iran, though. It was all part of a much larger plan that involved destabilizing and villainizing other countries. Empires need enemies. They thrive on division, on conflict, on having something to fight against. Without a target, the machinery stalls. So new threats are manufactured, old ones are recycled, and the cycle continues, all to keep the illusion of protection alive while the real costs are hidden in plain sight. This story is not unique to Iran. The same pattern has unfolded in country after country. Anytime a nation attempts to reclaim its natural resources or assert its independence, it faces resistance. Not just political resistance, but engineered destabilization, such as coups, economic warfare, and military intervention. Whether it's Latin America, the Middle East, or Africa, the script rarely changes. This is the deeper architecture of empire. It is not a nation with borders, but a global operating system driven by scarcity, control, and the fear of losing dominance. It is not conscious in the way a single leader might plan it. It moves like a collective shadow, repeating itself through institutions, economic systems, and foreign policy agendas. It thrives on the belief that resources are limited, that control must be maintained, and that the world is a battlefield of winners and losers. But what if we looked at empire as not a flag or a nation, but as a state of mind? One that crosses borders and ideologies, living in the systems we have normalized and sometimes even in ourselves. Recognizing this allows us to step outside of the story, to stop reacting and start reflecting. Because once we see the pattern clearly, we are no longer trapped in it. If we want to change the course of geopolitics, we must start by transforming our own consciousness. Political systems are built on patterns of thought, and those patterns begin inside of human beings. This means we cannot expect lasting change in the world if we are still ruled by fear, ego, and illusion in our own personal lives. The first step is to question what we've been told. Much of our understanding of global events is shaped by media that often serves the interests of power. Go beyond the headlines. Study history from multiple perspectives. Listen to voices from other cultures, especially those who have experienced colonization, war, or economic manipulation. Truth often does not scream the loudest. It's often hidden and blocked. Empathy is the gateway to real understanding. Take a moment to imagine how it feels to have your own country's leader overthrown by a foreign power, your culture labeled as dangerous, your economy manipulated through sanctions, and your people painted as enemies. This is the lived reality of millions of people. When we see the world through their eyes, our perspective deepens and our reaction softens. But awareness cannot stop at the global level. We must also look inward and ask where we have given away our own power. Are we allowing systems of control to dominate our thinking, our work, or our relationships? Do we outsource our values to political parties or social trends? Do we chase safety by conforming instead of seeking truth? Real security comes from integrity, not dominance. From knowing who you are and acting in alignment with it. When more people begin to live with that kind of awareness, the structures of control begin to weaken. Empires fall when people wake up, and that awakening begins with each of us right now. Even if we see the problems with Iran's government, that does not mean we should support regime change or collective punishment. Governments and citizens are not the same. The Iranian people have faced decades of sanctions, isolation, and violence, often justified by the flaws of their leaders. But real progress comes from respecting sovereignty and supporting grassroots movements for change, not imposing power from the outside. If we truly care about human rights, we must reject empire in all forms, even when it wears the mask of liberation. The story between Iran and the United States shows what happens when power takes priority over trust and when nations forget the deeper roots of conflict. These cycles of control and retaliation continue when we ignore the patterns behind it. Healing starts with awareness. Cooperation, transparency, and critical thinking are essential if we want something different. If you want to understand how political beliefs and media reflect deeper stages of human development, then watch this video here on using spiral dynamics to become more politically aware. And if you want to learn more about how to see through propaganda, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching.
All right, thanks, Franco. Very good, in-depth look there, and not just the history of relations between our country. You know, when I was coming up, the Iran hostage situation happened. What, 79? I was 10 years old. Yeah, you can do the math there, and we were, 19, on the verge of having Reagan as president. Everybody was saying that Carter was hapless. The failed attempt to rescue the hostages didn't help his cause there. And then Reagan comes in. Little did they know he had already made a deal with Iran to release the hostages, as long as they got some weapons. And that's a fun little historical rabbit hole to go down. How Reagan was probably one of the shittiest presidents we ever had. Finally, today, another video, but of course it's our buddy James Lee. They're going after James Lee. That things might be getting serious for our boy. All his reporting, he thinks he's been, you remember, you was 8 and 79? Okay, so you Gen X old like me too, huh, Kill? Right on. I feel you, brother. I feel old every day. Mystery, I meant to say hi to you. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well, dear. So things are getting crazy for our boy James, and he's going to tell us this. This is about 7 minutes, but like I said, it's worth it. So check it out.
This is crazy. I have been reported to the FBI for dangerous rhetoric in one of my recent videos. No joke. I was recently reached out to by a reporter who is digging into the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange, otherwise known as GLE, the program in Atlanta that sends American police officers to Israel for training. Well, he sent me an email just saying, hey, by the way, I'm writing a story about GLE and was doing a public records request, and your name came up in one of the emails and just wanted to let you know. And I thought, oh, shit. Let me now read you that email from Dr. Robbie Friedman, the founding director of GLE, addressed to some FBI agent who's redacted here. The subject line reads, the latest incitement. Quote, gentlemen, the latest attack is in the form of a video. Professionally, it was very well done. Oh, why, thank you. Appreciate that. Except, he says, the numbers, facts, and context are way off. It is incitement against GLE and the police. It is blatantly anti-Semitic. The 151 comments, except one, are anti-Semitic as well. Very dangerous. So I am a threat now. The video he's referring to is this one I recorded in Georgia, an expose on Cop City, which I'll link in the description below if you haven't seen it yet. But apparently doing journalism is now considered incitement. But one of the first thoughts that I had after reading that email is I've always heard stories from people with much bigger followings and audiences than me about being swatted. And to me, it was always like so hypothetical and theoretical. And this was the first moment I was like, oh crap, this could actually happen to me. But let's be clear, I am not backing down because the facts are on my side, right? Why is it anti-Semitic to point out that pro-Israel groups have poured millions of dollars into training U.S. law enforcement officers in Israeli counterterrorism and crowd control methods, tactics that are pretty brutal and now being used in America to manage protests and dissent here at home? Why is it dangerous rhetoric to ask why Israel, a foreign nation, is investing millions of dollars to shape U.S. law enforcement strategies? Is there something they stand to gain from influencing how American police, how our police are being trained and deployed? As an American, shouldn't we have the right to ask these questions? It's got nothing to do with Jews or whatever, because the reality is there's just things they don't want you to talk about. Like AIPAC, one of the most powerful pro-Israel lobbies, has quietly been funding Cop City-style projects all across the U.S. Also, the mayor of Atlanta, Andre Dickens, blocked last year a referendum where 116,000 signatures were collected by Atlanta residents, which is double the number required, who wanted to place the question of Cop City's construction on the ballot. Just got rid of it. Is that democracy? This is, by the way, the same mayor who traveled to Israel on a 10-day trip sponsored by AIPAC. So let's stop pretending this is about anti-Semitism. Criticizing government, any government, especially one that is lobbying ours, is, in fact, a constitutional right. And truth be told, the real question here isn't, is there influence? Obviously, yes. The real question is that influence good for Americans? That's why they want to shut down the conversation, because if we think too much, we might go, well, this may not be a good idea for us. So I want to play you the end of my Cop City video that was so dangerous, because I think it's just so important to understand what exactly is going on here, what might be the intent of groups like AIPAC funding police training, American police training. Israel's influence on American policing, particularly in the context of protests that challenge U.S. policies on Israel, places Israel in a unique position to safeguard its interests by relying on U.S. police to enforce its own narrative, especially as anti-Israel sentiment rises among American citizens. And the construction of Cop City in Atlanta is a direct manifestation of this influence. As protests against Israel's actions in Gaza continue to rise, U.S. police, equipped with Israeli tactics, are positioned to suppress opposition to Israel's policies. This dynamic has become even more pronounced under the Trump administration, which has sought to stifle anti-Israel activism by declaring it a form of anti-Semitism and threatening legal and financial repercussions.
You're going to be under arrest. So turn around.
Okay,
Stop
let's
resisting.
not.
Stop resisting.
Okay, he's not resisting. He's giving me his phone, okay? He's not, I understand, he's not resisting.
Put your arm
Like,
don't worry about it. You're going to have to come with us. Don't worry. I'm coming with you. Don't worry.
No one's resisting. No one's getting worked up.
hi, Amy. Yeah, they just like handcuffed him and took him. I don't know what to do. And what should I do? I don't know.
However, while the state may grow more repressive, I think there's power in solidarity. The fight against militarized policing and for Palestinian rights has become a symbolic struggle for all marginalized communities. Personally, the one thing I've never shied away from is advocating to support the civil rights of those who may not look like me or think like me because, and this may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but I believe that gives us the greatest chance of creating a more inclusive and harmonious future. The power of protest, collective action, and cross-cultural solidarity remains, I think, our most potent weapon against rising authoritarianism. The last thing I'll say here today is that I will not be bullied, I will not be silenced, I will not stop investigating powerful people because this isn't really about me. This is about civil liberties. And forgive me, I'm one of those people who still believe in civil liberties. Civil liberties still matter, and I know that I am not alone in that fight. My name is James Lee. Let me know what you think about this issue. Should we be concerned that foreign governments, specifically one foreign government, is so involved in every aspect of American society? Is that a problem? If you want to help me out, if you want to keep this work alive, I could use your support more than ever. Like, share, subscribe so we can keep holding these powerful people accountable.
Mm. 12-year-old kid. You're right. Kill. It's the fucking Gestapo. Two good videos there. Franco from Frank Analysis and James Lee. Somebody get the lights in the back, please. Thank you. It is. It's like it's like school videos, right? You come in, you see the TV. All right, we ain't gonna do shit today. Global, good to see you. I see you popped in there. Good to see you. And Yipper, you as well. Yeah, so that's it for the news block. I just want to remind you, coming up later, probably about an hour and a half, our buddy Kevin over at Black Bear News, he's going to be on. And if you could help donate to his cause, his cause is his home got destroyed, burned up in the LA fires, and could use all the help he can get. Links are down below. If you can donate, that's great. If you can share out the links, that works too. Also, tomorrow night, this bullshit, The Secret Show, more dumb shit, more fun stuff. Trying to add more games, get more community involvement. Fun little after show for all your party fun for the evening. You just want to hang out with an old guy and watch videos about butt plugs and stuff. That's where we're at. Finally, today, folks, this is from my buddy Kira from Chicago Corner. She passed this along to me. Actually, she wanted me to do a graphic for her, and I said, well, you know what, I'll just promote the whole thing too. So phenomenal activist here in the Chicago area, and she's they're trying to help her out. Louise Cloutier is her name. So a little about her. After 57 years of tireless justice work with no 401k and no financial cushion, it's time for us to support a woman who has supported so many for decades. Lifelong justice work doesn't come with retirement benefits. Louise has poured her energy into the collective good, often unpaid, and now faces aging without financial stability. And you're probably going to see a lot more people as they get into retirement age doing more GoFundMes because probably their Social Security and everything else is gone. They're raising funds to give Louise Cloutier, activist, coach, and healer, the breathing room she needs to rest, recharge, and continue sharing her incredible wisdom without the stress of survival. So she basically just sacrificed a lot for herself, and now here she is and needs the help of the community. So Louise began organizing at 14 years old and has never stopped. There's a video on the website. We'll have this link in the description too after the show as well. So she's turning 71 on July 28th. Let's celebrate her birthday by honoring her legacy and investing in her future. You can find out more about her current work at Women's Power Voice. There's also going to be a live stream tomorrow for her at 2 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. I believe it's on the Chicago Corner channel. There's also going to be an online birthday celebration for her on July 27th. So yeah, if you could do that, that would be cool. That, like I said, that's put together by Shira Fox and Kira McCown. Of course, Kira McCown from Chicago Corner, organizing this fundraiser on behalf of her. If you can do that, like I said, it's great. If not, if you can share out the links, that works too. Trying to help people as much as we can, trying to inform them, that sort of thing, trying to do good things. Speaking of good things, I'm going to end this show for you because we're done. Secret Show tomorrow night, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Specific time. We'll be back with this show on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, 8 a.m. Specific time on YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. I'm toying with the idea of maybe streaming on Twitch soon again. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But I'll let you know. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate all yous. You're wonderful people. I love each and every one of you. Make sure that you're thinking for yourselves. Don't rely on other people to think for you. That's just lazy. Use your critical thinking skills. Be skeptical, everyone. That doesn't mean you have to be suspicious. So skeptical doesn't mean suspicious. It just means, just keep your eyes and ears open, because you never know. The fuckery is always afoot. Fuckery is always afoot. What is this? A protest in support of Ayman Solomon, a former Cincinnati Children's Hospital chaplain detained by ICE, erupted into chaos on the Roebling Bridge. People are starting to step up. They're not taking this shit anymore. I know you don't really see it that much, but it's there, and it's going to keep bubbling over until finally we get the change that we need. We have to. You got to fight for it. They're not going to give it to you. They sure as fuck ain't going to relinquish their powers. You want to keep living in this oppressive state, just keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. But if you want to change things, you need to find common ground with people you don't like for surface level reasons, because your country and your world's at stake. And that's not hyperbole either. So Willie Bragg threatened to have a show tonight. He may have a show tonight, so watch out for that. Of course, Around the World with Dee and Friends, she's on tonight too. Always good stuff there. Check out all our pals here in the independent space. Good people doing good things. We appreciate all of you. And I will see you tomorrow night. Come see us. Have some fun with us. We'll have good times. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!